Hello everyone, I'm Daniel Vergara together with my groupmates. And right now, we will be going to discuss about the two famous Indonesian literature. First in the list is the story Everybody Has His Burden.
Learning objectives. First, present the historical and cultural background of Indonesia. Second, determine the significance of the story to Indonesia. Third, explain the connection or importance of the story to world literature.
Before we begin, let us first have a game called Mentimeter. Number 1. It is widely known as the Emerald of the Equator. A. Vietnam. B. Indonesia. C. Bangladesh. Number 2. This tree bore the national fruit of the Philippines. A. Mango. B. Guava. C. Tamarind. Number 3. It is a type of writing that has meter, rhyme scheme, and figurative language, and is often written in lines and stanzas. A. Novel. B. Poetry. C. Letter. Number 4. These are any usually flat and green outgrowth from the stem of a vascular plant. A. Stems. B. Leaves. C. Roots. Number 5. This is any narrative account of a series of related events or experiences, whether non-fictional or fictional. A. Epic. B. Sonnet. C. Story.
History or background. The history of Indonesian literature comprises of the following periods. A. The period of Buddha. It began since the discovery of Yupa inscription that written records found in the 4th century. The writing adopted the Sanskrit and Pallava letters from India. In the same periods, the poets began to develop their skills in literature. B. Old Malay poets. Literary works are dominated by Sayur, Gurindam, Pantun, and Saga, where stories are all about morals and history. Literature in this period are all written by anonymous poets. C. The poets of Balai Pustaka, from 1920 to 1950, the period when Balai Pustaka publisher intended by the Dutch East Indies colonial government had a right to arrange the literature circulation. The literature are mostly romances and novels. D. Pujangga Baru, from 1930 to 1942. The Pujangga Baru is a form of reaction from Balai Pustaka publishers who are considered too strict in censorship, especially on works that contain elements of nationalism for independence. E. 1945 period. The literature in this period is inspired by the socio-political circumstances of the revolution to maintain independence. The literature produced are poetry spirit of nationalism.
1950s characterized by publication of literary magazine Acts of Care H.B. Yasin, the literature is dominated by short stories and poems. 1966 to 1970s, this period is marked by the publication Horizon Literary Magazine. Many literature styles were growing like surrealist and absurd. 1980s, the literature revolves around romance and love, began to appear popular novels with easy-to-understand light stories. 1998, the reform of state structure in political, social, and economic aspect has given a good chance toward the development of Indonesian literature. And year 2000, the emergence of this generation is marked by the rise of works of literature, poetry, short stories, and novel, the theme of socio-political, especially around the Reformation.
Everybody Has His Burden is an Indonesian folktale that has no author. It was preserved through oral transmission. The adults narrated this story to children, and the children also told the story to the next generations. Now, this story is written inaccessible through different sites and bookstores.
Everybody has his burden, but the heaviest burden is for the small and the low. On the island of Sumatra, there was a majestic mango tree. It had heavy branches that rose like arms to the sky and thick foliage from which huge, large, and fleshy fruits. The tree, which had grown next to a road, attracted the attention of everyone who passed by. One day, a pitiful voice was heard emerging from the ground at the foot of the tree. I cannot take it anymore. What a burden I have to endure. I have to hold on tightly to the ground and to bear the enormous weight of the trunk and its heavy branches, in addition to the added load of leaves and fruits. Because of all this weight, I am buried alive, unable to enjoy the curses of the sun, the vision of the starry nights and the moon. I'm dying of curiosity to see how the rest of the creatures that populate the earth are, our sisters in life who I'll never know. Why did it come to me to be the Ruth? Nobody knows how much suffering this means for me. If only I could have the idle life of the trunk.
What idle life? How can you say that? Replied the trunk, unable to believe what he heard. My life is not easy at all. I also have to hold up a lot of weight. Have you seen those branches that rise to the sky? Have you seen how many fruit hang from them? I carried food for them all, up and down, tirelessly, day after day, and the animals scratched their backs on me and tear off my bark. And have you not seen my hard fight against the gales and the hurricane winds? The winds turn and twist my body, and I have to make a colossal effort to prevent branches from breaking off, or worse, being cut in half, which would mean that we all die. In addition, the trunk continued. Humans cut my branches with axes from time to time, leaving deformed stumps, and they love to engrave their names in my skin with knives. And do they thank me? Humans only thank leaves, which give them a shadow over their heads. Leaves do have festive life, because they spend the day dancing with the breezes.
Suddenly, the leaves, referring to the trunk, the branches, and the roots, spoke out. You are all ungrateful. We protect you from the sun's rays in the summer, and from the monsoon's rains in late autumn and winter. We protect you from the winds, and even give our life for you. Many of us are torn and dragged to death by gales, and those of us who manage to survive by clinging to the branches end up bruised and full of scratches. If we are not devoured by the animals, like those that hang lowest, and if we are lucky enough to avoid being dragged by the winds, and to finally fall peacefully to the ground, we find ourselves with the sad fate of the fire that humans reserve for dry leaves. How can you say, trunk, that we have a festive life? Maybe the fruit does have a good life, hanging there and swaying all day.
It is sad to hear you talking like that, the fruit said at once. We are the ones that should inspire the most compassion. Do you know what it is to live harassed by fear? The insects eat us, the birds eat us, the animals eat us, and humans come to tear us from the branches to devour us whole. But the most tragic of all is that we have to accept our destiny and preserve our good name, our sweetness, for the sake of all of you. If we were not tasty, humans would cut down the tree because it would be useless for them. If humans plant us and give us all a life, it is thanks to us because they find us delicious. It is our sacrifice that protects the tree, and we are the ones who make it possible for you to have offspring through our seeds.
Do not argue, said a seed at the foot of the tree with a conciliatory tone. Arguing wakened us all. And she added sensibly, all of you strive to create me, and in this way, we can reproduce and survive. And for me, it is not easy either, you know. They bury me alive, and I must open my bowels to make all of you again.
Oh, enough is enough! Shut up now! It is true that together we create mangoes and that each one plays an important role. But the heaviest burden is on me, because you all depend on me. If I do not exist, none of you would be here. If I get sick, forget about the trunk, forget about the leaves, forget about the fruits and seeds. I feed you all, and I have to go into the earth and the darkness to look for your sustenance, while you ignore me and only think of yourselves.
And so it is also among humans, the Batak people say. Before making a decision, think about the rest of the groups that make up a society. For there to be true democracy, root, trunk, leaves, fruits and seeds have to participate in decisions and collaborate with each other for the common good. However, it is also root, the most numerous layer of society, that sustains and keeps alive the rest of the society. They are the ones who carry the heaviest burden.
Everybody Has His Burden is an Indonesian literature. Indonesia has abundance of trees and plants. Actually, the 2/3 of the country's territory is made up of tropical rainforests. Because of this, the story was made to explain how a country is kept alive. The author used symbolism to show connection between a tree and a country. The root symbolizes the farmers, fishermen, and other workers that give life to the different parts of the country. Their role is to ensure that everybody is getting the nutrients or the food they need. The trunk symbolizes the sellers, the merchants, and businessmen who distribute the food from the roots to the other members of the country. The leaves symbolize the soldiers and protectors of the land. They are willing to sacrifice themselves to protect the country. People in the society are symbolized by the fruits. Families and every individual keep the peace and establish the name of the country for it to be known around the world. The tree symbolizes a country, and each part has a role, making the tree stand against all the storms and droughts and stay together for the future of new seeds.
Now, let us proceed to the post-reading activity. Answer the following questions. Number 1. How does the story reflect human attitude and view of the world? Number 2. What are the things you consider to be your burden? Number 3. How do you handle your burdens in life? And number 4. What could be the significance of your burden in your life?
Assessment.
What is the greatest things you've learned from the story, and how will you apply it to your life?
Everybody Has His Burden focuses on the roles of the different parts of the tree and relate it to how a nation works. Every part is associated with people who have a duty to provide the needs of the citizens. It emphasizes duty and responsibility as well as equality and unity.